Hey, this is Soomin Kim, your Austin real estate agent, and today I have a very special video for you today. As most of you know that have followed my journey since the very first video that I put out here on YouTube, you've known that I relocated from a state, picked up myself and my entire family, and moved here to Texas, specifically Austin, without really knowing anyone. And this was a journey that's been going on for a little over a year now. And the question that I get asked more than anything when you reach out to me is, why'd you do it? How'd you do it? How's it been? And so what I wanted to do is, after a year, I wanted to give you a review, an authentic review. And so that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna try my very best to take off my realtor hat and just give you the perspective of what it's been like as a husband, as a father of two small children, as someone that has picked up their entire family and moved here to Austin, Texas. And I think, and I appreciate it, but one of the things that I think that the reason you reach out to me is because I am someone that has gone through and has done exactly what many of you are looking to do. I'm not someone that was born and raised here for their entire life. I'm someone that has come to this city, come to this state with the eyes of a visitor, with the eyes of someone relocating and starting brand new in this area. And so I want to give that perspective, but I can't do it better than bringing on a very special guest who has obviously been with me on this incredible journey, and that is my wife. So I'm going to introduce you guys today to my wife, Natalia, and together we are going to share with you what our experience has been like with the 1 year review of what it's been like since our family moved here to Austin, Texas. Let's go. All right, so here we are. I want to introduce you to someone obviously very special to me. This is my wife. This is Natalia. We've been married for 12 plus years. We have two small children, ages 5 and 7. And this is someone I had to bring on because this is a journey that the both of us have been on. Over 1 year now, we've been in Texas. And so what we want to do is, we don't have too much scripted. We just want to share, what our experience has been like, because we know there's many of you considering doing the same, and we'd love to give that back to you. So everyone, welcome Natalia.
Hi y'all, nice to meet you.
You said y'all. All right, so let's talk a little bit about our story. One of the questions I get asked more than anything is, why did you leave? What brought you here? What were the reasons? Well, obviously we'll try to touch on that through this video, but really, if you guys know my first video I put out there, and I shared a little bit about my story, but more than anything, I think this past few years was an interesting time for the entire world, but it allowed us as a family to really look inward and figure out what we wanted for ourselves,
Definitely.
So do you want to maybe share a little bit about what brought us to this decision for moving?
One day Soomin brought up this idea of moving to Austin, and I'm not from the United States. I'm from a different country. I've lived in many different places, and I thought it was kind of exciting to have a change of pace, and he brought up this idea of, I can get you that white on white farmhouse that you really want. And it sparked a little bit of interest, and he came to Austin, checked out the area, called me one day and said, this place is beautiful. And I said, as long as there's a lot of nature and a lot of things for our kids to do, I'm down. And so we realized we could really be happy anywhere, because we could start a new adventure together, and we have a lot of core values that we uphold dearly for our kids and for ourselves. And we knew that coming here, we could really offer them a different style of life, and we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I think more than anything, it was, if we're frank, it was a lot of reasons, but just on the high level, it was change of environment.
Yeah.
Change of pace. For those of you who don't know, we came from a place in California, Orange County. Everything moves a little bit faster, and we just wanted a change of pace, change of environment. Obviously, there are factors that played a role in our decision, from cost of living, the direction we felt the state was going. And so these are all things that got us and culminated to a point in this specific time of right now, in this past few years, where with everything going on in the world, we had a chance to really sit within our home and ask ourselves, what do we want?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people that I've met here in the Austin area that have also relocated have said the similar things that we said at the beginning. Well, we don't really have friends there. We don't really have a community set up. There's no specific job waiting for us. We don't have family there. And a lot of people say the same thing. We just felt like we wanted a change of pace. And we saw Austin, it was beautiful. And we thought, there's a lot of cool things happening there. Let's go.
Okay, so absolutely. So I did take a look at various different parts of Texas, and we landed in Austin. I think you heard Natalia say it. I think what drew me most to kind of bringing this up to my wife when I got back home was the fact that, yes, what we thought of Texas stereotypically was just, it was going to be flat, it was going to be sand or dust everywhere, everyone's going to be driving tractors.
So this is my first impression of Texas. We were driving from California to Texas. We finally hit the Texas border. Everyone's crying. We're so emotional. We're so excited. We're in Texas. We're home. 10 hours later, we're still driving try to get to Austin.
So yes, Texas is a big state. But I think what drew me to Austin, and I shared it with you when I got back home after my scouting trip, I said, man, like there is nature there. There's creeks. There is topography. I didn't know there was going to be that type of hills there. It reminds me of certain parts of Orange County that we're used to. Yeah. And from there, even before I kind of made a decision like, man, this is it. I think this is it. Yeah. And as you know, some of you know that the first time my wife had ever been to Texas was the day we moved.
We moved here.
Yeah.
So I really trusted him, and I do trust him. We've been married for a long time. And when he said, I think you're going to like it, I had this idea of Texas, what he mentioned, lots of hills and farmland, and I was excited about that. But really, I was really happily surprised when we got to Austin. It's lush. It's rainy in the best kind of way. It has nature trails, hiking trails, creeks, rivers, lakes, amazing parks. I was really taken aback because you have all that. You also have the farmland. You also have the little cows and the chickens, and we get our eggs that we eat at home from like chickens at our co-op. I mean, you have all of this sort of like stereotypical Texas, but right down the street you also have Whole Foods, you have World Market, you have Costco, you have Target. So it really felt like a beautiful balance of all the things that I was searching for, that we wanted for our kids. So I was really happily surprised when we moved here. I thought, this place is amazing.
Yeah, so here's what we want to do in this video. Obviously we can just go on, but what we'll do is we want to give you a 1-year review, talk about specific subjects of what it's been like for our family to relocate here, live here for over a year now.
Some cons.
Yeah, so pros and cons of what it's been like for us. So we're going to get right to that. So let's talk about it. Let's go.
Let's talk about the weather. Okay.
All right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room, as they say. For us, we came from a very specific climate, perhaps in the entire world. I mean, we came from Southern California, Orange County to be specific, and we lived pretty close to the coast, And so we're talking about, yes, 78, 75 degree weather year round, winter, summer, doesn't matter. It is mild, and it's perhaps one of the most mild climates in all the world. So for us to come here, we feared that more than anything. We feared, oh my gosh, we're leaving the most perfect climate in the world and we're going somewhere that's going to be different, And
a lot of people that I've talked to here that have relocated here, a lot of different moms and families also mentioned the same thing. They were so scared of the weather. But for me personally, I was looking for seasons. Like I wanted seasons. I wanted my kids to experience seasons, like the change of the leaves. And I grew up with that. And I think there's something beautiful about seasons. And so I wasn't super scared of the seasons. I was more so scared of the heat in the summer.
Right. So let's talk about how hot it gets. So I would say 3.5 months of the year, yes, you're gonna go into a zone where it does get hot. Now, mind you, we are coming from the West Coast, so that's gonna be a different feel than maybe perhaps someone that's coming from a different part of the US. In fact, a lot of you, as you know, a lot of my clients are coming from different areas where they're coming specifically to Texas because of the weather.
Yeah.
You know, they're avoiding some extreme weathers in different areas or different parts of the US. But for us, obviously, we're coming from a really ideal, very unique weather. And so yes, 3.5 months of the summer, yeah, it was hot. It's hot. It's for sure hot. There's no way around it. But that to say, the rest of the year, fall and winter tends to be a little bit cooler, but on par with what we're used to. Spring was beautiful.
So it's September now, and we walked out this morning, the kids and I, when we woke up. We always go outside to our backyard, and it was so cold that everyone ran in to put sweaters on. So the moment the season changes, it changes. So once the heat is done, you're walking into a super mild, amicable weather. You want to be outside all the time. The evenings cool down. The sunsets are gorgeous. But in the summertime, there are days where it's so hot, you either want to be inside with the AC on, or you want to go to one of thousands of water activities that are literally in your backyard. So there's splash pads and pools and community water parks, community pools. We've discovered creeks and rivers. There's a creek just down the street from us where you can literally just jump in and the water rushes through you. So does it get hot? It's gonna be hot. But there's also many, many ways to cool down, and it's also a very short period of time. And for all of us, it's actually been really fun.
Yeah, it's been an adventure. I mean, as many of you probably read and saw on the news, but this wasn't your typical year here in Texas or in Austin. We had the snowpocalypse and Snowmageddon. But here, and I know there was parts of Texas, it got pretty serious. You know, people lost power. So I don't want to take that any lightly than it should. But for us and for our children, you know, we had some blackouts on that very unique period, but our children had a blast.
That was their first time experiencing snow, and I couldn't keep them indoors. I mean, I couldn't keep them indoors. Our daughter grabbed his bodyboard and started sliding down the street with it. I mean, it was such an experience. There was hail, there was crazy amounts of snow, but it lasted for a week.
So and then the next week it was gone. So yes, so the weather is, for us, it's a newer experience. We were ready for it. Mentally we were ready for it. The summer is hot. A couple other things about the weather that was new to us was, yes, it does rain. And when it rains, what's different from where we're from is that typically when you read like a 5-day weather forecast, it was pretty predictable, right? It was okay, 7 days out, it's kind of what it's gonna be like. In Texas, this thing's good for like half the day, right? And all of a sudden it can just rain out of nowhere. So that's what was kind of fun, actually. We appreciated that. When the rain does come down, it gets pretty heavy, you know, at times, but it's very short-lived. And so just more weather. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it is, just more weather.
What the change is that you just have changes of weather. You have changes in season. It's sometimes a little unpredictable, but if you have young children like we do, you sort of adjust to it and you make it fun, and the kids really enjoy it. You know, when it's raining, the little frogs will come out, the kids go outside in the backyard and play with them, and it refreshes the whole environment. One thing that I've always said to new friends that come, even friends that visit or family, is that there's always a breeze. I feel like no matter where you are, you can always find this cool breeze that sort of hits you, even in the summertime, even in the hottest days. So it makes it fun, bearable, and it really is not really that big of a con.
No, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know, we're probably just getting used to it now, you know? So, as a husband, as a father, for myself, my biggest insecurities in relocating was I wanted to make sure, first of all, that my children made friends. And then secondly, just speaking for myself, I wanted to make sure from that, it connected to my wife making friends. And for myself, I don't know if it's a guy thing, but for myself, that wasn't the biggest priority for me. My priority was to be productive, you know? Can I get here, my family be happy, and I can be productive? So I want to really kind of allow you to share what it's like how do you make friends?
Yeah.
Did we make friends? What's that like
Yeah.
when you move to a new area?
I took a couple notes before we started this, and I wrote down as one of my cons, that you actually do have to make an effort to make friends. But I want to expand on that because, my biggest anxiety in moving out here wasn't for us, it was really for our kids. And we have a 7-year-old daughter, soon to be 8, and we have a 5-year-old boy. And they, at this age, they know who their friends are. And that was their biggest fear, was coming out here and having to make new friends. But as you know, children are so highly adaptable, and it's usually us grown-ups that have a harder time adapting to change. And so I just knew that if they made that first friend, that they were gonna be okay. And again, I was so happily surprised. There's something about the Texan sort of culture where people are very friendly, and it's actually been an adjustment because they are so friendly that you're almost used to something else, especially if you're coming from a different type of culture like the West Coast where we were coming from. But I found that there's a lot of families that are also relocating to this area, also looking to make friends. And so if you open yourself up to that experience, and if you're vulnerable enough to say, okay, my kids need to make friends, let's go to the park and talk to that mom, then you're going to find that it's actually really easy to build a community here. If I can say one more thing, the way that the communities are set up in Texas, we live in a big community, and most of the people that have relocated to here, to this community, are coming from all different places, all different parts of the United States and even different countries. And the pool is a great place where we have made friends. The kids just start swimming and talking to each other. The moms start talking to each other. It's actually happened that every time we go to the park, we make a new friend. And I think that I've just let the kids sort of direct me in that way. Let's go to the park. Look, Mom, I just met so-and-so. Can we exchange numbers? And we also, seeked out ways of making connections. So when we moved out here, I found a co-op. I homeschool my kids, and I wanted to find a place where they could make friends. And so they actually participate in 2 different co-ops here. And we can talk about schools a little bit, but they immediately made friends there. Then we made friends at church. We made amazing friends in our neighborhood. We have so many friends here. Our front door neighbors, our neighbors down the street, our neighbors next door. We have neighbors across the way. We have so many friends now, and it's only been 1 year that my daughter's birthday party's coming up, and I had to limit her guest list because I couldn't fit everyone in my backyard. So, that anxiety was easily dissipated the moment we landed because, children are highly adaptable. We sought different ways of making community, but it was also really easy here. There's a lot of people moving out here that are looking for the same thing.
So yes, that is the advantage. Like, you have to understand that when you come to a place that becomes a relocation target, a haven like Austin or the suburbs of Austin, everyone's looking for the same thing. Yeah. We all want the same thing, As a husband, as a father, we all want the same things, right? So, but at the end of the day, it is a matter of intention. Mm-hmm. It's a matter of making an effort. And I think that because that desire is similar with all of us in these areas, a little bit of intention and a little bit of effort actually is very effective. And that's what we found. We found that people were like a balloon waiting to be popped. Like, I'm so glad you popped it because I've been waiting to befriend you, That's true. So I can't speak for every community or for every area, but just from our experience, that's what it was. And just to throw out there, Natalia mentioned communities. And typically, if you find yourself in, let's say, a new construction or a community, in a master plan community, a lot of times they actually hire someone full-time just to direct events, just to put on events, just to have an activity calendar where it's gonna bring the community together. And the best communities out there have this going for them. So obviously you guys can reach out to me if you have any questions of what those communities look like and the ones that do it best. So with that being said, yeah, community, absolutely.
Yeah, and I actually get, I'll add to that, I get an email pretty often saying, there's a food truck coming to the neighborhood, or don't forget the farmer's market on Friday afternoon, or, there's going to be outdoor movies and ice cream for the kids. There's going to be a gathering at the pool for all the kids starting school. I mean, there's so much on the calendar that we actually can't participate in everything, but just to say that there are tons of opportunities of making friends, and the kids do make friends, and I've made so many quality girlfriends since I got here, which just delights him and makes it so much more fun to be
I have no friends. So if you guys would just call me, and love to be your friend.
I'm his friend.
All right, so let's talk. So perhaps the number one subject when you call me looking for an area or looking for a home that possible relocation is schools, school districts, And so what we can do is we can share our experience. Our experiences might be a little more unique as the way we're going about educating our children. But I will say this, there's not a lack of schools here.
Yeah.
There is actually a statistic out there that I think almost like there's a new elementary school being built almost every 2 months just to handle the influx of people moving to this area. And they're amazing. I've never, the elementary school I grew up going to was like a rinky-dink little home, and these look like,
they're beautiful.
Yeah, they look like straight up like universities,
Yeah.
So with that being said, let's talk about schools, and maybe, what I'm not gonna get into is and it's readily available online. I'm not going to get into school district ratings. We're not here to talk about that, but just giving you a little bit of vibe of what we've seen when it comes to school, whether it's elementary, children's school, daycare, middle school, high school.
Yeah, so we homeschool our kids, and we've done that since the beginning. If you are a homeschooling parent, or because of the pandemic you decided to start homeschooling your kids, which a lot of people have, there are so many amazing programs for homeschoolers. In fact, there are co-ops and charter programs. It works a little differently here in Texas than it did in California. It's not state run, so there is no state funding, but there are so many affordable opportunities here. For us particularly, we found a homeschooling co-op, and then I was looking for like a one-day drop-off program. We found another co-op that is actually almost like a full-time school, but they have a homeschoolers day where the kids can do electives. So I was surprised by how many amazing opportunities. There's homeschooling days at the museums, at the different nature centers and things like that. So if you are a homeschooling parent, just know that there's a lot here, and I think if you were to message him privately, I would be happy to share my personal experience with more depth. If you do put your kids in public school or private school, there are both. Most of my neighbors have their kids in public school, and the kids are elated. I mean, they're going to school. Some take the bus, some get driven to school. They love their teachers. They love the program. It's smaller classrooms than what I heard that it was like in California. So it's more personalized education. It's really well ranked in the nation. I mean, I think Texas has amazing schools from what I hear from my mom friends that have their kids in public schools.
Sure.
And there are also some great private schools here. So whatever route you're taking with that, even in our neighborhood, our neighborhood's very new, so they're building an elementary school here. And
so you'll find right now you'll see a lot of communities building their own on-site elementary school. So it's been such a draw for a lot of my clients that the idea that they get to walk their kids to school, and the school is being real right on the community. So there's a lot of that. There's a ton of middle schools.
There's great high schools.
High schools are great. So what I would say as far as school goes, do your own research.
Yeah.
But from what we've seen, the feel that we get from our community, our friends, our neighbors, they're so happy with. There's not a lack of programs. There's not a lack of private schools, whether it's certain faith-based education, whether it's a challenger schools, whether it's whatever that is for you. It seems to be plenty of that. So
and great after-school programs too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have friends that have their kids in gymnastics and dance and taekwondo. There's an ice skating rink right down the street, and there's kids doing ice skating and hockey. I mean, there's soccer and football. I mean, whatever you're into, Austin has it.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu, martial arts, there's a lot of that popping up everywhere. So for all things schools, all things children, yeah, we couldn't ask for more. All right, so let's just talk about like things to do. The funny thing about the fact when we relocated is like we had friends visit us more after we left the state than they visited us when we lived down the street, you know? So when they did get here, we always had to figure out like, well, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna entertain people? And that kind of put us in a rhythm of figuring out what are fun things to do.
And I have to say, you know, we moved from California, our kids were like, we're not gonna have the ocean. We felt that pressure too. But when we moved out here, we went to Lake Travis. It's kind of like this central lake, kind of like holds Austin all together in the north of Austin. And it's so beautiful that I remember telling him, we were on this pontoon boat going super fast. The water was crystal blue. There's mountains all around it.
Hills.
There's hills, not mountains, hills. And I told Soomin, I said, I just fell in love with Austin.
Yeah.
I mean, I got so much water there that I needed like a water source to go to. So that was one place that we took our friends, and it's beautiful.
So every time our friends would come visit, we would do a Lake Travis trip. We'd go there, we rent the pontoon boat, we get a tube, get to pull the kids behind there.
So
really show them a different part of Texas, you know? Sometimes when you're in this area of Texas, especially West Austin, Northwest Austin, Lake Travis, if you were to sometimes take a picture of some of this scenery and put it out there and ask, where am I? Very few people would say, well, that's Texas, you know?
Yeah.
So it's been...
There's a lake and a park down the street that has kayaks and paddle boards that you can rent. And so you can go into this little creek at the end. And I mean, it's just...
So there's
fishing ponds in the neighborhood.
Yeah, there's watering holes, there's lakes, there's creeks. And another thing that I feel like it's like a rite of passage for when people come to visit us is we take them downtown, we show them downtown, we'll show them uptown or the Domain area. But one of the places we always have to eat when someone comes in is obviously Terry Black's barbecue. Let's go.
Oh,
and
so good.
yeah, I think we've sold a few friends to move over here just based upon taking them to Terry Black's, right?
Yeah.
So, but hey, barbecue is a big deal here. It seems to be more than just food. It seems to be a form of culture and like art, like smoking meat, you know, like so brisket and stuff. So I've never been the biggest like brisket guy, but I can tell you right now, there's levels to this game. And Austin, Franklin's, Terry Black's, this is probably top of the food chain when it comes to.
And coming from somebody I've been vegan, I've been vegetarian, I've done all the things. He took me there, and I think I pretty much asked him to take me back the very next day. So, you know, there's an amazing food culture here. There are food trucks. I'm from Venezuela originally. There's a Venezuelan restaurant down the street. There's like a Venezuelan food truck down the street. There are Asian restaurants. I mean, whatever your flavor, there is something here.
Yeah.
And I think that food truck culture makes it really fun because there's gatherings of food trucks, and people go to these gatherings. They can hang out with their kids. They have picnic tables outside. There's just so much fun stuff to do with your family.
I do want to point out though, I think that's a pro, but it's also a con in the fact that like we came from a place where there's so much food, so much different foods and restaurants, and I think we're in the middle of really an influx in this Austin and the surrounding communities and the suburbs of Austin where more and more new restaurants are popping up. So for me, I would desire more. And I'm actually excited by all the commercial development that is coming around, mainly more than anything for food. I just want more choices of food.
But I'm going to thread a con to what you just said. There is a lot of construction going on. No matter where you turn, there is construction happening because the area is developing so quickly. So you do have to expect that there is construction dust and there are construction trucks, which for our 5-year-old boy, it's like he's basically in Disneyland every day, but you know, it can get loud depending on where you're living. You just have to expect that it's an area that's booming and growing, and there is construction. They're expanding the freeways. I mean, there's a lot of construction going on. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But I also want to say this for those of you that might, have a romance with the ocean, like I do. I mean, that was some of you know my story, but that was a part of my life, my young adult life of being in the ocean, riding waves, surfing. It was actually a part of my lifestyle on a weekly basis. But One of the things that is here in Texas, specifically Waco, which is about 90 minutes north of Austin, is a place called BSR Cable Park, which has a world famous surf resort. And it's funny because when we moved here, I think within like a 2-month period, I went there like 4 or 5 times just to make sure like, hey, I'm still getting my surfing in, I'm still riding waves. And so that was incredible.
And if you're a Chip and Joanna Gaines fan like I am, in Waco, there's also Magnolia Market.
Yeah.
So we did that and we did Magnolia. I mean, there's so many beautiful small Texas towns too.
So here's what I would say also, and I remember doing this in the beginning. We don't do it as much now. I think we should probably start it again. But every single weekend when we moved here, we went out and tried to discover a new city.
Yeah.
So whether it was Fredericksburg, whether it's Waxahachie, whether it's Lago Vista, whether it's, there's so many cities that we've pulled off and I'm like, oh my gosh, where are we? It's like a movie set.
Yeah, we just pull off the road because we're looking for,
a snack or whatever, yeah.
And then we're like, wow, what is, I'm like, can we move here?
Yeah,
Victorian homes, I mean, beautiful architecture, amazing coffee shops. I mean,
so it's been an adventure for sure. There's so many cities here and
but you do have to put yourself out there. You do have to have a small desire to explore and to kind of uncover all the beauty that Texas has.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna quickly touch on the subject of the cost of living. There's plenty of videos out there where you can get really the nitty gritty of the specifics of it, but maybe just a high level, what it's felt like as far as cost of living. I'm not even talking about home prices so much, but just, everyday life, So obviously the first thing that we recognized when we got here was the cost of gas, Cost of gas was approximately like 50% less, It's gone up since then, but I feel like it's gone up nationwide. And so gas was immediately, was kind of an eye opener for me. It made me realize this is the reason why so many people drive huge trucks, because the cost of gas isn't that bad or as bad as it was, where we came from. I've seen great reductions in my car insurance. Car insurance cut by like 50%. Again, you probably want to do your own research on this, but these are just things that I saw. We saw bills decrease. The biggest caveat here, and as you know, with my channel, is probably property taxes. If you're going to be in an area where there's new homes, you're going to see an increase in property taxes. I should probably make a whole nother video talking about this specific subject, but for most people, there is a neutralization if you're coming from a state where you do have state income tax. Texas is a state where they do not have state income tax. And so oftentimes that difference between the increase of property taxes oftentimes is neutralized for most people based upon not having a state income tax or coming from a state where they did have state income tax. So, but if you want to talk something as simple as like groceries, maybe?
Yeah, so I do the grocery shopping for our home, and at the beginning I felt like the cost of food was a little bit higher than where we were coming from, but in doing a little bit more research or noticing a little bit more about what was happening in our home, our children just started to eat more food. That's basically the bottom line of that. But, I shop here at H-E-B. It's a grocery store that it's kind of like a mix of Target and Whole Foods and like depends on where you're coming from, like a regular old food store. And it's pretty fair. I would say the proteins are fairly priced. All the organic produce is fairly priced. I shop at Whole Foods as well, spend the same as what I was spending in California. Shop at Costco, also similar. So it's not that big of a difference. And, obviously as your kids grow up, they're going to start eating more food, you're going to buy more food. But so as far as groceries, you're good. It's almost the same as wherever else you're coming from.
Yeah. So all the stores that we're familiar with, we have here. H-E-B tends to be the big, I guess it would be considered like a Vons or Albertsons or...
Yeah, it's just they're called differently in other parts.
Yeah, I know. But all that being said, H-E-B is the main superstore or supermarket brand here. We also find everything that we're familiar with. We have Whole Foods here, Trader Joe's is here, Sprouts is here. And there's also a chain that we didn't have back home Similar to a smaller version of Mother's Market is a place called Nature's Grocers.
Nature's Grocers, if you're like me and you're looking for specific like natural remedies or organic foods or, you know, specific like dairy-free, gluten-free brands, go to Nature's Grocers.
Homeopathy
And herbs and things like that. There's Nature's Grocers is amazing, and Whole Foods has a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so overall, I mean, yes, coming from where we're from, the cost of living has been reduced in certain levels of bills, gas, even eating out some ways is a little bit less than what we've seen from where we're from. So that being said, obviously homes is the biggest reason you guys are even on this channel, so that's a whole nother subject, and talking about prices of homes and what you get for what you pay in different areas. That's a different subject, but for us overall, yeah, we've seen a reduction in the cost of living, and that was one of the biggest reasons we came out here, not only for our life today, but we're thinking ahead, right? What's it gonna be like for our children when they become young adults and they're trying to buy a home or they're trying to live somewhere, you know, are we putting them in the best position? And that was certainly a big factor for us to getting out here in Texas.
Yeah.
Do you regret it? What do you miss? And you know, what I want to do is, in this video specifically, like, I wanted to give a little bit what the psychology feels like of relocating to a new place. Because not only did we do it ourselves, but I've been able to help so many of you do the same. And it seems like the questions are similar, the concerns are similar, and sometimes just the feelings are similar. I will say this, for us, what this past couple of years has provided an opportunity for us to do is just look within your own household, you know? And what I mean by that is, I didn't realize how much influence we have from community, friends, jobs, family. You know, there's so much that I feel like we end up living for more than just, you know, what is ourselves. And so this past couple of years allowed an opportunity for me to just look within my household and say, look, I'm responsible for my wife, my children. What is it that we need? And everything else can come second, you know? And it allowed us an opportunity, especially with the way the world was and how, you know, the environment was, for us to just be introspective and say, I want to do this for my family. This isn't an adventure. This could be something that could be great for us. And here's the great thing. What's the worst that can happen? We just move back, right?
Yeah.
So that's really the worst that can happen. And so with that, we made this jump. And I would say it this way, this is the best way I've been able to explain it to some of you that have asked. If I woke up tomorrow morning and this was all just a dream, like this whole idea that we took my family from one state and moved to another, and it was a dream, I just woke up and I'm back to where I was. Obviously there's familiarity there, but I can honestly tell you, I would be a little bit sad. I would be probably depressed because of what we experienced as a family, and in every way of growth, you know? And I really wish it for every family should experience this. What it feels like to just growing together, going into a new area and not knowing anyone, and seeing how close we become as a family, because we only depend on each other in the beginning. And as we take that nucleus and as we expand out, it's been such an incredible journey. But the realtor side of me wants to say this, there is a psychology to relocation. And here's the truth, when you come to visit or you're considering any new place that you might live, what you're doing when you get there naturally is you're just grasping for familiarity. You're grasping for something that might feel similar to what you're used to. It doesn't mean it's better or worse. You're just grasping for it. And you have to identify that because that's very new. It's very natural. But when you're just looking at an area, it's never as good as your first impression. It's never as bad as your first impression, right? So the way I look at Texas, Austin now, from the way I looked at it when I came to visit or in my first month here, is so different than anything else. And what that tells me more than anything is that change is scary, but on the other side of change is some of the most amazing things, you know?
Yeah, and if I can be vulnerable, like the first 3 months felt really like walking uphill pretty much every day. You know, we were living half in boxes and half with, you know, the few things that we brought with us from California. We didn't have like we moved into a rental house while our home was being built. So there was that like having to unpack half of your things. And then, you know, you're only there you're kind of like temporary living, you know. That was our experience. And it was hard on the kids too. I saw the stress in them, but I just knew, and I was certain that with time, everything would recalibrate itself again. So you almost have to have a lot of grace and a lot of patience for the process, because you are throwing yourself into the wild, so to speak, and a lot of new things will shift in your environment and in yourself. But for us, for me as a wife, I've noticed a peace about our home and a growth in our kids and a growth in our personal relationship as husband and wife. And I've noticed, just this unity that he's talking about, and it's been the greatest gift that we could have gotten out of this experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll end with this thought. Regardless of how much the transition can be challenging, the question I've always asked myself is, what are the reasons why we chose to move? What are the reasons that drew us out from where we were to where we want to go? And can I change those things? Will those things change over time? And when we can say that we didn't see those things changing from where we were, it always recalibrated and reinvigorated the reasons why we are here. So it's always important to ask yourself, as you're going through this, what are the reasons why we moved, and stick to those reasons, because that's gonna remind you of the choices that you made.
And you'll feel the pushback too. You'll feel the pushback. Like, my soul was yearning for this Southern slow, this sacred slow that everybody talks about, this outdoor porch lemonade life, and I felt the pushback in myself. I felt that wanting to multitask, that fastness, that city life in me, and I've had to work through that. I've had to work towards that vision that we have. This vision of this slower paced life, this family-centered, community-focused, serving, and you have to notice, because it's when you're changing, you're going to want to change back into your old patterns. But if you have a vision for your family when you move, because you're wanting this change and this shift, then you have to allow that to happen, and it takes time.
Yeah. All right, so there you have it. Want to thank my wife for joining us on this special video. And as much as I want to take my realtor hat off and just give you a perspective as someone who did this, I'm going to go ahead and put it back on and just say this. Whether you are in a similar situation like myself, whether you have children or you don't, whatever age and stage that you are in your life, there are different reasons why you might be considering moving here in Austin. I do realize one of the biggest visions and the pulls that you might have to this area is, first of all, finding your home. And that's where I want to be able to serve you. Again, I'm not someone that was born and raised here and this is all I know. I'm actually someone that looks at Austin still as a view in the eyes of someone that is a visitor in some ways, And I hope that video helped you to see what I see, having lived here for over a year. But with all that being said, look, I'm here to serve you, whether you are looking for a home in this area or any other area of Austin, and even I have team all over Texas. Do not hesitate to reach out. As always, I will put my contact information right up there. And so whether you text me, message me, call me, find me on WhatsApp, Instagram, or Facebook, I want to be a conduit. I want to be able to serve you in any way that I can. Before you do anything else, before I let you go, I do put out a ton of content that's going to help you find your place here in Austin, to help you find your home here in Austin. So make sure you like and subscribe to my channel, because the moment I put out new content, I want to make sure that you get it, because in this market, it's all about timing. And for us, I wish we went into it more, but timing was absolutely impeccable. And timing, it has to be impeccable for you to get exactly what you want. So with that being said, thank you for listening to my story. I'm so happy for the journey that we're on and the community that we've built. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Let's go.